It's been a while, but I finally have a new 2019 Honda Monkey video to show you guys. So I've been waiting for it for a while, and it's actually taken about 2 months to get. But I've got the man-in-the-box intake system for the 2019 Monkey. And I also have here the Cameron Jones Racing flashed ECU for the man-in-the-box intake and the Yoshimura RS3 exhaust system. The Cameron Jones Racing ECU was $200, and then once I send them back the core, the ECU that I have in the bike, they refund you $100, so it's only about $100 total, and then there's $5 or $10 of shipping. But they also have a policy that if I make any other changes to the bike, they'll reflash the ECU for free. So if new components come out or I make another adjustment that I want to have them reflash for, it's included in that original purchase price. So excited to get the new intake on, take off this bulky box, and per Cameron Jones Racing website, with the intake and their ECU, it's supposed to add about 2 horsepower, which for a bike that I think only has 8 is a pretty big jump. So looking forward to seeing what type of performance gains we get out of this adjustment too. Swapping the ECU is really simple. It's literally just a matter of pulling out the ECU down here. There's just a plastic or rubber hook that's connected there. You pull off and this just pops off and the new one pops in. I'm going to go ahead and install the intake first though, then swap the ECU and start it up and see what it's like. So first, for a quick unboxing, and I apologize for the fan noise in the background. It's another pretty hot and humid day here in Florida, but it comes in a pretty small size box here. According to I think it was Greg, a man in the box that I've been talking to, the thing that had been delaying the shipment of this were the silicone tube here that they have custom made. I got the second run of the production intakes. I think the first run was pretty small. There was only about 40 or so that went out. So I know a lot of people were waiting for the second run that also I know sold out pretty quick. On YouTube, there's a couple of videos of people that had pre-production versions of this, and I assume it's pretty much the same. I don't know how much, if anything, that they changed, but yeah, it did take a while, and I know that they're still back ordered if you're looking to get them. But wanted to go through the stuff that's included. So this is the silicone tube. It comes with just some regular hose clamps, a UNI breather filter. This looks like something that just comes off the shelf. And then the DNA high performance filter. I selected the oval shaped filter. I think they also had a hexagonal shaped filter, but this is the one that had the red on it, which I thought did a good job matching the bike. It also comes with a hose clamp for the filter and a whole bunch of DNA high performance stickers. One of these smaller ones I might put on the chain guard that I have a whole bunch of the other company stickers on that I've been adding to the bike. So looks like it's probably a pretty simple install. There's no instructions included in the box, but I'll go ahead and pull off the airbox and see what it looks like. Again, I imagine it's pretty straightforward. Looks like there's a Phillips head screw underneath this side of the original airbox. And it otherwise just slips out. My guess is that it's the same on the other side. So that were the two sides of the housing. So on the left side of the bike, there's a couple of hoses, one here and one here, an electrical connector here that's going into the airbox, and then 2 10mm bolts that are holding the airbox to the assembly. So I'm just going to pull those off. Oh, that popped off real easy. Popped off almost as easily. Connector, you just depress this part here and it slides back. So back here on the right side, there's a one more 10mm bolt right here. And then right here, there's a Phillips head screwdriver that looks like it's holding the air tube to the manifold. So it's like a Phillips head screwdriver. Okay, airbox off. Before I mount the new air filter onto the bike, we need to pull off the air sensor from the original one. It's just held on by 2 Phillips screws. So you pull it off from here, and then it mounts onto the bracket right here. Let me see, I think we're going to need some additional different screws because this was threading into plastic. And in the package here, it looks like it comes with Allen bolts with lock nuts. So I'm going to pull these out and use it to mount this to the bracket. So at least with the hardware that came in my kit, it was a 3mm Allen bolt at the top and an 8mm open wrench for the lock nuts that came with the kit. But that has that then mounted onto the bracket very neatly. So next step is to get the silicone tube onto the throttle body here. So I have the hose clamp mounted first. So 2 more things while we're still on this side of the bike. There was an additional bracket that had a rubber grommet that was holding the original airbox mounted here. I went ahead and removed the 2 10mm bolts, took the bracket out since I won't need it for this setup, and then just put the bolts back in. One bolt here has no function once the bracket is removed. The other bolt though holds the manifold to the actual motor here, so make sure that that one gets replaced, and again I just replaced this one because aesthetically I thought it looked better, but otherwise this bracket wouldn't be used again. So as I was trying to mount it here, there's the lip of the frame here prevents me from lining those 2 holes up, but it does come with a plastic spacer in the box, and I'm assuming that's what this is for, because as I put that spacer on, it makes that pretty flush. So using the breather filter, the plastic spacer, and then this Allen key, it looks like it allows me to line that up. Using a 4mm Allen key, that seems to fit pretty neatly right there. and just barely doesn't touch the throttle or the silicone tube for the intake. Okay, so there's two hoses on this side. The shorter one that has the metal clip is for the breather that we installed on the other side of the bike, so I'm just going to route that around and get that connected to there. It comes with a little metal clip, which should be good enough to hold it onto there. And then this longer tube, as I understand it, is a breather tube for the gas tank. So no need for it to go into the airbox. I'm just going to tuck it up somewhere here in the engine bay. Since the gas cap doesn't have a venting hole for it, this effectively acts as that. So just tucking it up somewhere into the frame should be good enough. So the breather filter tube popped on pretty neatly and feels snug enough with that metal clip that it came with. So I'm just going to go ahead and just leave that there for now. And then again, this tube, I'm just going to find a place for it to hide somewhere here in the frame. Trying to make sure that it's not kinked so that it doesn't prevent the gas tank from being able to breathe. So here you can see the back side of the breather filter and the tube that comes with the little metal clip attached to it, and it's neatly routed around where nothing is kinked. And then here is the gas tank breather tube, the longer of the two tubes that I just have kind of wrapping around back and down into the frame so that it's hidden away. So then the last things that need to be done here is attach the metal bracket that has our air sensor in it. Mount using the two 4mm Allen screws the bracket here, clamp on this side, clamp on the air filter, and that should be it. So here's the mounting bracket that has the air sensor attached to it that we popped in earlier. Since it tucks in pretty tightly, I'd go ahead and first plug in the sensor clip and add the metal clamp to that side of the tube. Then we can pop this in. Pretty tight fit. It looks like that'll be okay. And before I mount the air filter to the other side of the bracket, I'm going to reroute this blue line that I have here. It's going to the ignition coil, and it's the sensor I use for my tachometer. But now that I don't have the airbox hiding it anymore, I think it's better if I tuck it up a little higher and zip tie it to this larger set of cables. So then last step, getting the DNA air filter onto the bike. So that completes the install. I'm pretty happy with the quality of the kit and the parts and how easily everything fit together, and also how strategically they used the existing mounting points both for the main filter as well as the secondary breather filter that ends up looking pretty clean across the whole bike. So the last part of this install is the Cameron Jones Racing ECU. It again looks exactly the same as the OEM one. I'm sure it actually is, just the fact that they flashed it and they wrote CJR and have my name on it, so that if there are changes, other changes that I do to the bike other than the intake and the exhaust that I want remapped for it, that I can send it in, and apparently they do it free of charge, short of the shipping going back and forth. So the install here is obviously really easy. As I showed, there's just this plastic, or rather this rubber mount. It has these two mounting points on each side that slip into plastic tabs to hold it here. But pulling this out, it's just a matter of pushing down the tab and popping it out. Then this rubber sleeve slips off of the old ECU, and again, this is the core that I send back to them for the $100 refund, because I imagine the one that I have is just somebody else's original one that they flashed, and they just keep going through that process, so they always have some on hand. Slipping the rubber sleeve back onto the CJR version. It fits snugly here. You can see that one side of the rubber lines up so that it can't slip all the way down. And then it's connected and ready to be mounted back onto, and actually they're metal, not plastic tabs. I'm not sure how clean that's going to show, but there's just two tabs here that it presses into and is real snug. I don't have the ABS system, so I have quite a bit of space here. So I had a chance to do a quick ride. Throttle response seems a lot snappier. I like the sound that the whole bike's making quite a bit more. I wanted to do a much longer ride, but the sky looks like it's about to open up, so I didn't want to get too far from the house. But two last things that I wanted to point out. One is, when I switched the ECU, I probably should have pulled the power first. But what happened was, as soon as I fired it up for the first time, I immediately got a check engine light. When I brought it back, took off the seat, took off the negative terminal for 5 minutes, popped it back on, I fired it back up, and no more check engine light. Did a couple more miles and everything seemed good. So if you are changing the ECU, go ahead and pop off the terminal, the negative terminal, while you change it, and then put it back on once you've swapped out the ECU. The other thing that I wanted to point out, as I was riding around, I noticed that the air filter was getting loose pretty quickly, and the metal bracket that they provide, for as cool as it is, doesn't have lips on the end of them. So what was happening is, I had this metal bracket snugged all the way to the left here, and what happened was it ended up just kind of squeezing the rubber part of this out to the point that it almost fell out. So what I advise is that instead of having it all the way to the left, put it almost as far to the right as possible. The tube comes out far enough to support that, but that way it holds enough of it in to be snug. But if it's not snug enough, the whole thing will slip out, and that's not something that you want to lose on the highway. Same for on this side. This tube is actually quite a bit stronger and isn't going to squirt out, but I didn't snug it all the way to the right. I have it just a bit to the left to make sure that it's over the meatiest part of the metal bracket. But other than that, pretty happy with it. Looking forward to doing some more rides. I did buy a GoPro 7 that I'm going to mount to my helmet and start doing some vlogs. So interested to start riding around and talking about this bike. Thanks.